Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something today that might just shift your whole perspective. You're sitting there wondering why he never picks up that phone, why he never sends that text, why he doesn't show up. Even when everything in your heart tells you he still wants you, you feel it, right? You know he craves you, but he's silent, and it hurts. It confuses you. It drives you crazy. Men don't process emotional desire the same way women do. That's one of the biggest disconnects in relationships, and one of the hardest things to accept when you're on the receiving end of silence. See, when a woman misses someone, when she feels deeply for someone, her instinct is often to reach out, to talk, to express, to connect. That's how she brings relief to that longing. But men tend to go the opposite way. When they feel something intense, especially desire, longing, or emotional pain, the first instinct is often to pull back, to withdraw. Not because they don't care, but because they don't know what to do with all of that emotion once it hits them. From a young age, most men are taught that being emotional, being vulnerable, being expressive with feelings is somehow weak, that showing desire openly makes you look desperate, that reaching out when you're hurting makes you less of a man. So what does he do? He suppresses it. He acts like he doesn't feel it. He tells himself, don't say anything, don't text her, don't call her, handle it on your own. And while he's doing that, while he's keeping that craving locked up inside, you're on the other end thinking he doesn't care, thinking he moved on, thinking his silence means you didn't matter. But the truth might be far more complicated than that. When a man craves someone deeply, it stirs up a storm of feelings he doesn't always understand. He may want to reach out, but then that voice in his head says, what if she doesn't want to hear from you? What if she's done with you? What if you look weak? So he waits. And the longer he waits, the harder it gets to break the silence. He starts pretending he's fine. He distracts himself. He buries himself in work, in friends, in noise, anything that keeps him from feeling the full weight of that emotional pull. He's not reaching out, but don't mistake that for not feeling. Some men feel more than they know how to handle, and instead of reaching for comfort, they retreat to control. This kind of emotional withdrawal is often misunderstood. People think if he really missed me, he would have called by now. That's a fair thought, but not always accurate. Because some men operate in survival mode when emotions hit. They don't reach out because they don't trust the moment. They don't trust themselves, not to say the wrong thing. They don't want to seem needy, or worse, get ignored. That fear of emotional exposure is powerful. Craving someone doesn't mean they've developed the tools to show it in a healthy way, so they shut down. Not because the feeling isn't real, but because they've been conditioned to stay silent in the face of it. You see, a man may deeply want to hear your voice, but pride tells him not to dial. He may be replaying your last moment together in his head every night, but he won't say a word. He might type out a message and delete it 100 times. He'll check your social media, watch your stories, look at your pictures, and still not make a move. It's not because he doesn't crave you. It's because he doesn't know how to handle what he's feeling without also feeling exposed or out of control. And for a man who hasn't done the emotional work, silence feels safer than vulnerability. So while you're thinking his silence means he doesn't miss you, it may actually mean he misses you more than he can admit. But missing you and knowing how to come back to you are two different things. He's sitting in silence, battling with his thoughts, his fears, his pride, and everything in between. And while it doesn't make it easier on you, understanding this truth can keep you from blaming yourself. His silence isn't always about you. It's about what he never learned to express. There's a kind of craving that goes deeper than physical attraction. It's not just about wanting to be around someone. It's about feeling drawn to them, emotionally tied, connected in a way that's hard to shake. A man can feel that for someone. He can crave her presence, her voice, the way she makes him feel seen and understood. But that craving doesn't always lead to action. You would think that if someone wants you badly enough, they'd come towards you, they'd reach out, they'd close the gap. But what people don't always see is the wall that stands between a man's desire and his decision. And that wall is fear. Men don't often talk about it. They don't post about it. They don't sit down with their boys and break it all down. But a lot of men are terrified of vulnerability. That fear is real, not because they're weak, but because somewhere along the way, they learned that opening up is dangerous, that showing too much, caring too hard, admitting they need someone, that can get them hurt. So what happens? He wants to call you. He wants to be near you. He wants to tell you how much he misses you. But that thought alone opens a door to rejection. And rejection hits different when you've invested emotionally. So instead of risking that, he pulls back. He may even convince himself that staying silent is the strong thing to do. That holding it in means he's in control. But that's not control. It's fear dressed up like strength. Because craving someone, truly wanting to be close, that demands honesty. That requires a level of truth most people aren't ready to speak out loud, especially men who've been taught their whole lives to hide softness behind silence. The fear of rejection isn't just about being turned down. It's deeper than that. It's the fear of not being enough, of showing up with your whole heart and hearing, that's not what I want. That kind of wound sticks. And for a man who already doubts his worth, it can feel safer to never try at all. He thinks, if I stay quiet, I can protect my pride. I can pretend I'm okay. I won't have to face the pain of hearing no. That silence becomes a shield. And even though he craves her deeply, he'd rather suffer alone than step into a space where he might be exposed. Then there's the fear of vulnerability. Real connection demands it. You can't love halfway and expect the other person to feel whole. But vulnerability means admitting you care. It means opening yourself up and saying, you matter to me. And for some men, that's terrifying. It feels like giving someone the power to hurt you. He remembers past relationships where opening up led to betrayal or disappointment. And so now he's cautious. He wants to feel safe. But safety and silence don't go together. You can't stay hidden and build intimacy at the same time. Another fear that often goes unspoken is the fear of losing control. Some men believe that once they show how much they care, they'll lose leverage in the relationship. They think they'll be at the mercy of the other person's emotions, so they hold back. They try to maintain the upper hand. But what they don't realize is that this need for control only creates distance. And that distance doesn't ease the craving, it intensifies it. They're caught between the fear of letting go and the pain of holding back. A man can crave you with everything in him and still stay silent, still stay distant, because those fears, rejection, vulnerability, and losing control are louder than his desire. And until he faces those fears, until he grows through them, his actions will never fully match his feelings. His silence isn't always a sign that he's moved on. Sometimes it's just proof that he hasn't yet figured out how to move forward. There's a kind of silence that people assume means someone doesn't care. The message is stopped, the phone doesn't ring, and suddenly it feels like they've disappeared without explanation. It's easy to interpret that silence as distance, detachment, or a lack of love. But silence isn't always that simple. It doesn't always mean he doesn't care. Sometimes it means he doesn't know what to do with what he's feeling. Emotional confusion is real. And for many men, it becomes the reason they pause instead of pursue. When a man is emotionally confused, he's in a state where his head and heart aren't aligned. One part of him knows he wants you, misses you, thinks about you constantly, but another part of him is uncertain, not necessarily uncertain about you, but about himself, his readiness, his direction, his identity, or even what love is supposed to feel like. That kind of confusion doesn't come with clarity or confidence. It comes with second guessing, inner conflict, and hesitation. So he stops talking, not because you don't matter, but because he doesn't have the words to explain what he's wrestling with internally. Emotional confusion can come from a lot of places. Maybe he's never had a stable relationship. Maybe he grew up watching love fall apart. Maybe every time he's tried to open up, it's ended in disappointment. So now he's carrying baggage that you didn't pack for him, and he doesn't want to bring it into what he has with you. Or maybe he just doesn't recognize the depth of his feelings. Some men have spent so much time running from emotion that when it finally catches up with them, they freeze. The silence becomes a way of buying time, trying to sort out thoughts that aren't coming together clearly. It's also possible that he's struggling with the pressure of what he thinks he's supposed to be. A provider, a protector, someone who always has the answers. But when feelings enter the picture and emotions get deep, he realizes he doesn't have all the answers, and that can be overwhelming. Rather than admit he's unsure or afraid, he chooses not to speak at all. He convinces himself that staying silent is better than saying the wrong thing. And while he's sitting in that confusion, you're left wondering if you ever meant anything to him. But the truth is, he may be sitting in his silence, wishing he could say something, but not knowing how. This emotional confusion creates a mental tug of war. He remembers the good times, the laughs, the connection. He knows there's something real between you, but then doubt creeps in. What if he's not ready? What if he messes it up? What if it's too late? These thoughts spin around until he's paralyzed by them. And that's where the silence comes from. It's not rejection, it's reflection. It's not absence. He's not avoiding you, he's avoiding the feelings he can't name yet. In a world that doesn't always allow men space to feel or process emotions openly, confusion often becomes isolation. He pulls back because that's what he's used to. That's what feels safe. He may still care deeply, he may still love you, but in his mind, he has to figure it all out before he can come forward, and sometimes that takes longer than it should, not because his feelings are fading, but because he's not emotionally fluent enough to express them in real time. Silence becomes his only language when he doesn't know how to translate what's happening inside him. So when you're left with nothing but silence, don't rush to assume it means you didn't matter. Don't let it convince you that your value was in question. Sometimes it's not about you at all. Sometimes it's about a man standing in front of a mirror, not recognizing his own reflection, craving connection, but scared of commitment, feeling love, but uncertain about how to live it. Emotional confusion doesn't always make him a bad person. It just means he has some growing to do before he can meet you where you already are. There are moments when a man wants nothing more than to hear your voice. He checks his phone, hoping maybe you sent a message. He scrolls through old conversations, reads your words, and imagines what it would be like to talk to you again. He might even type out a message only to erase it before it's ever sent. Not because he doesn't miss you, not because you don't matter, but because his pride and ego are standing in the way. He wants to reach out, he wants to reconnect, but something inside him keeps saying, don't be the first to fold. That voice in his head is louder than his feelings. It's telling him that making the first move means surrendering power, that reaching out means weakness, that if he says he misses you, he's handing you the upper hand. For some men, pride is a wall that keeps them from vulnerability. And that wall doesn't just protect them from hurt, it also locks them out of healing. So even when the craving is strong, even when the silence feels unbearable, he waits. He hopes maybe you'll break first, that you'll call, that you'll come to him, because then his pride stays intact. Then he can convince himself he didn't need you as badly as he actually does. The ego is a tricky thing. It thrives on appearance and control. It wants to be right. It wants to win. And in relationships, it becomes a battle of who can care less, who can stay colder longer. He might tell himself if she wanted to talk, she would. He might act like he's over it, like he's moved on, but deep down, he's stuck. He's still watching your story, still wondering if you're thinking about him, but ego doesn't let him show it. Ego tells him to stay silent, even when his heart is screaming. Sometimes he knows exactly what he wants to say. I miss you. I'm sorry. I still care. But every time he comes close to saying it, pride pulls him back. It reminds him of the times he let his guard down and ended up hurt. It whispers that being the first to speak makes him look desperate, that he'll lose respect, not just from you, but from himself. So he plays the role. He pretends he's fine. He convinces himself the silence is a strategy, not a symptom of emotional fear. He buries the craving under layers of pride until he can't even tell the difference between protecting himself and punishing himself. The truth is, it takes more strength to be honest than to be silent. But the world has taught many men the opposite. They've been told that expressing emotion makes them weak, that admitting they care too much means they're not in control. And because of that, they often hold on to their pride like it's armor. But what they don't realize is that pride might protect their ego, but it also costs them connection. It keeps them lonely. It keeps them stuck. It keeps them from saying the very words that could fix everything. He may lie awake at night thinking about you, but still not call. He may see you move on and feel something in his chest tighten, but still not reach out. Because to him, making the first move feels like defeat. He doesn't want to seem like the one who cared more. But that mindset doesn't bring peace, it brings regret. Because sometimes by the time he realizes that pride wasn't worth it, The moment has passed, the door has closed, and all he's left with is the memory of what he didn't say. Missing someone deeply doesn't always lead to action when pride is in the way. Ego turns emotion into a competition when it should have been a conversation. And while he's sitting there trying to prove he's unaffected, the silence grows heavier. He thinks he's in control, but really he's just controlled by fear, stubbornness, and the need to look strong. And that need, more than any distance or disagreement, is often the reason he never picks up the phone, even when he desperately wants to. Sometimes a man disappears not because he doesn't care, but because he thinks you deserve more than what he can give. It's not always about losing interest or moving on. Sometimes it's about the weight he carries inside himself, the doubts, the fears, the silent belief that he's not good enough for the kind of love you bring. When he looks at you, he sees everything you are: strong, kind, loyal, grounded, and it wakes something in him that feels both beautiful and because deep down, he's wondering, what if I can't live up to this? What if I disappoint her? That thought alone can make him pull away, not because he doesn't crave you, but because he feels like he's not equipped to keep you. He knows what you bring to the table. He knows you have a heart that deserves consistency, effort, and presence. But maybe he's not ready to show up in those ways. Maybe he's still figuring himself out. Maybe he's still carrying wounds from the past that he hasn't talked about. And he's afraid that if he gets too close, he'll ruin something good. So he walks away not out of coldness, but out of fear that staying might break something even more important: your trust in him. There are men who love deeply but quietly. They won't always say it. They won't always show it the way you want them to, but the feeling is there. The only problem is when they look at themselves, they don't see someone worthy of that kind of love. Maybe he's not where he wants to be in life. Maybe he's struggling with his purpose, his identity, his confidence. And when he compares that with the version of you he holds in his mind, he doesn't feel like he measures. That gap, real or imagined, makes him feel small. So rather than talk about it, rather than admit it, he creates space. He disappears, convinced that removing himself is the best thing he can do for you. It might not make sense from the outside. It might feel like betrayal. One minute he's with you opening up, making plans. The next he's gone. No explanation, no closure, just silence. But that silence might be coming from a place of protection, not punishment. He's not trying to hurt you. He's trying to spare you from a version of him he doesn't think is enough. And sometimes, in his mind, that seems like the noble thing to do. Step away before he breaks your heart. Step back before he lets you down. He might never tell you these things. He might never say, I didn't think I was enough. Pride, shame, and fear all keep that truth buried. But if you've ever felt someone pull away when things started to get serious, when the connection deepened, when you let them see the real you, it might be because it scared them. Not because of who you are, but because of what that kind of intimacy demands. It demands growth. It demands honesty. It demands a man to rise to a level he might not be ready for yet. And that's the part most people don't see. It's not always rejection. It's sometimes reverence. He holds you so high in his heart that he's afraid of what will happen if he fails you. So instead of risking that, he fades into the background, hoping maybe you'll forget him. Maybe you'll move on. Maybe you'll find someone who's already the man he's still trying to become. In his mind, that's better than staying and slowly proving your faith in him wrong. It's a quiet kind of heartbreak, loving someone and feeling unworthy of their love. And instead of talking through it, instead of allowing you to decide what's enough, he makes that decision for you. He thinks stepping away is an act of mercy, but in reality, it's just another story of fear winning over love. When a man pulls back, when he stops calling or disappears into silence, it doesn't always mean he's done. It doesn't always mean he stopped caring. In many cases, it means he's processing. Men often deal with emotions in ways that are quieter, more internal, more withdrawn. It's not about indifference. It's about needing space to untangle what's going on inside. Unlike women who often process emotions through conversation, men are more likely to retreat into themselves. They think, they analyze, they wrestle with their feelings alone. And in that time of solitude, they're not always ready to talk. They're trying to figure out what the emotion means, where it's coming from, and what to do with it. It might not look like he's thinking about you. It might not seem like he's hurting, but that's because most men were never taught how to openly express their emotions. They've been conditioned to keep it all in, to stay composed, to handle everything in silence. So when emotions hit hard, whether it's love, regret, fear, or confusion, they go inward. They disappear to reflect, not to reject. They isolate not because they've stopped feeling, but because they don't know how to manage what they're feeling with someone else in the room. A man might be sitting alone thinking about you, remembering the way your presence felt, the sound of your laugh, the way you looked at him like you believed in him, but instead of picking up the phone, he shuts down. Not because he doesn't care, but because he doesn't feel ready. He doesn't want to show up halfway. He wants to be certain, to have answers before he speaks. That silence is often his version of preparation. He's trying to organize what feels like emotional chaos, and until he can do that, he holds back. He tells himself, I'll reach out when I understand what I'm feeling, even if that takes longer than you expect or deserve. It's frustrating to be on the other side of that silence, to wonder if you ever meant anything, to question if the connection was real, but often it was, and still is. He just doesn't know how to move through what he's feeling without retreating first. He's trying to make sense of his own heart before he puts it in your hands. That's how many men are wired. Solve it internally, then speak. But love doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you have to speak before it all makes sense. Sometimes vulnerability comes before clarity. And not every man is comfortable with that. He may feel things deeply, but show none of it on the surface. He might go out with friends, smile in photos, act like everything's fine. But behind all of that, he's wrestling with what he feels for you. He's thinking about what went wrong, what he could have done differently, and whether he's even capable of being the man you need. That internal process can take time, and during that time, he often chooses solitude over communication. It's not because he doesn't feel, it's because he feels so much that he doesn't know what to do with it yet. There's a kind of emotional journey men take that rarely gets seen. They go deep into themselves, looking for answers, replaying conversations, revisiting moments. And sometimes they emerge with clarity and reach out. Other times they never make it back. Not because the emotion wasn't real, but because they got lost inside it. The silence wasn't a decision, it was a delay. And by the time they were ready to speak, they assumed it was too late. So if a man pulls away, It doesn't always mean he's gone emotionally. It might just mean he's in the middle of figuring it all out. Not every man knows how to bring someone else into that process. Some only know how to go silent until the noise in their head settles. And until that happens, even if he craves you deeply, you may hear nothing but silence. Not because the love isn't there, but because he doesn't know how to carry it forward just yet.